great to catch up ahead of our FinTech North Liverpool Conference in a week's time, and also from renewing our partnership with you guys into 2025. So we thought it'd be great to sit down and grab a virtual coffee with you just to chat more about our relationship and the collaboration that we've had between FinTech North and DTM. So we start, just give us a quick intro to FinTech North and what you guys are all about.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Richard. Great to be with you and working with DTM Legal once again as annual partners at FinTech North. My name's Joe Roche. I'm General Manager of FinTech North, and FinTech North as an organisation really is the focal point for FinTech in the north of England. We're a community of over 8,000 people right across the north and beyond who are interested in FinTech, who are working in Northern FinTech. And as an organisation, we exist to bring that community together in our own back garden in places like Liverpool, Manchester, Leeds, Newcastle, and many other great places right across the north. We exist to support the development of the sector in the north by providing connections, profile opportunities, business development opportunities to those in our network. And we go out of our way to provide that support to startups, scale-ups and new market entrants pro bono. So yeah, we see ourselves really as a ecosystem facilitator. We're an events company. We run conferences, webinars, seminars, trade missions, any and every type of activity that engages people and promotes the North as a centre of excellence in FinTech, really. We started life in 2016 and since then, we've really grown and become more than just an event, and hopefully that's clear from some of the work that I've just described.
Yeah, no, it's certainly a lot. Keeps you guys busy, and you're great ambassadors for the North in general as well as FinTech. And you mentioned the different hubs and Liverpool in there, and obviously we've got the conference returning next week to Liverpool. It was such a great success last year. It was fantastic that we were involved then, and fantastic to be involved again. So what can we look forward to this year?
So thinking about this year's conference, I think, in many ways, we're hoping it's going to be bigger and better than the conference last year. I'll touch upon a few reasons why I think that will be the case. First of all, we've got a new format. So we're running it as a slightly shorter day, actually, but we think that that's going to boost engagement. We think that more people are going to be able to attend the conference as well if we give people a bit more flexibility with tickets. We're in a iconic location, part of the Three Graces. We're in the Royal Liver building. It doesn't get more iconic than being, right on the waterfront there. We're exploring some themes that are really pertinent to the city of Liverpool. So wealth tech and insurtech are two of our sort of major themes for the conference. Liverpool, port city, obviously, really, really deep established specialisms in wealth management and asset management, and also insurance as well. And actually we see that those sort of subsectors index really highly when we talk about the Liverpool FinTech ecosystem. So we've made sure that they're major themes on the day. Attendees can look forward to a really bright bunch of new FinTechs that we've only just come into contact with. Organisations like Safe by Choice, Quickly Pay, Scholar Saver, Valar as well. So we've kind of come across a few new FinTechs as part of the Baltic Ventures cohort. Great work, by the way, being done by Claire Lewis at Baltic Ventures. I'll touch upon those a little bit later on. But in addition to some new FinTechs, we've got really well-established financial services brands involved in the conference. Rathbones are speaking at the conference, which is awesome. We've got the Metro Mayor, Steve Rotherham, Mayor of the Liverpool City Region, is going to be speaking at the conference. Innovate UK, who are based in Liverpool, are going to be there. We've got some global FinTechs involved. Monzo are speaking at the conference. We've got international involvement as well. Madrid and Calgary are supporting the conference. Some of the city regions' kind of local FinTech success stories are involved as well. iSeed and InsurTech and local Loop Merseyside as well. So yes, good to have some homegrown success stories there. I mentioned Baltic Ventures. They're an awesome accelerator incubator based down at the Baltic Triangle. They're doing some great work. They'll be supporting us with the conference as well, speaking on the day. Finally, a couple more organisations to mention. Wouldn't be a FinTech North conference without involving a university. We've got the University of Liverpool speaking on the day, and then we'll be discussing a really interesting panel, or looking at the UK's leadership in fintech and what we can do to maintain the UK's leadership. And I think that's a really important thing to think about, really, where we're at in the world at the moment and right at the start of 2025. So hopefully there's a lot of sound bites in there, and that'll get people nice and interested in the day.
It's going to be, hopefully anyway, a fantastic event, and we're really looking forward to it. And there's some huge and really interesting names in the mix there. So it should be a really good day, and something great to build on from last year's as well. Now I know you have personally a little soft spot for Liverpool anyway, from being a student here. But why do you think Liverpool is an important hub for fintech, and what makes it stand out from the other hubs that you're involved in?
Yeah, always like to get that one in there when I'm opening up the conferences. I think a couple of things that I've sort of already touched on. InsurTech and WealthTech, both really strong subsectors for the Liverpool City region. There's a lot of interest in those two subsectors globally. And Liverpool indexes really strongly on those two fronts when compared to some of the other cities across the north that we support. And I mean, as a proud northerner, I really geek out on the kind of historical sort of significance of these specialisms, and how the tech ecosystem today sort of reflects the past prosperity and industrial heritage of some of the places that we work in. So yeah, I find that really fascinating, and it's certainly a globally significant strength for the city region. I think it's really important to talk about the city strengths and how we can differentiate what's going on right across the north. Other things to mention around Liverpool and why I think it's an exciting time for fintech in Liverpool. We all know that the city's got a really strong sort of gaming subsector and specialism as well, and the sort of digital and creative sectors are really strong in Liverpool, and that has impact on things like user experience, customer experience. So I think there's a really good story to tell there as well. And then a couple of really obvious things, and one of which I know really well, obviously from having lived in Liverpool for 3 years. How great and warm the people are. You can tell that every time you set foot in Liverpool, and every time we host an event there, we're always blown away by it. And then, needless to say, the city's got a really strong global brand as well. So yeah, they're some of the things that I think sets Liverpool apart, definitely, why it's so important.
Yeah, no, they are. They're all very, very true of the city, and hopefully unique selling points, and attracting fintechs and other businesses to come and operate here. And hopefully we're starting to see some growth as well in Liverpool's fintech community. Obviously you guys have been involved in Liverpool prior to the pandemic. You did stuff here, then post the pandemic. We've been partnershiping with you on a number of things, and been looking at how that ecosystem can grow. So how have you guys seen that from FinTech North's perspective? How have you seen the growth and development of the ecosystem over the last few years?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I can give you some sort of qualitative and quantitative answers here. So, if we rewind to sort of when I first started working at FinTech North back in 2019, I think we'd hosted maybe one event in the city previously. I think we hosted a follow-up event in 2019. If you'd have asked me how many fintechs I knew in Liverpool, I probably could have named, I'm not exaggerating, maybe 2 or 3. And if I was asked to predict how many were there, I'd probably have said, maybe a handful, maybe 10 fintechs. Fast forward to the 2023 Whitecap Consulting report into the Liverpool City region fintech ecosystem. It found over 40 fintechs in the sector, generating £200 million GVA for the local economy. So what we thought was very much a fledgling ecosystem was actually kind of well and truly up and running. And I think in terms of what I've seen more recently as well is, there's been an obvious growth in our conferences for a start. So I think last year we had about 130 people with us on the day in Liverpool. We're kind of fast approaching 200 registrations for the conference already this year. So we're really confident that the conference is going to feel bigger this time around, which is great. And again, is a sign that the ecosystem is growing. I also think that we've had a little bit more engagement from some of the city's financial services brands. And I think you can see that on the agenda for the conference this year. Retail banking brands in the city like Santander and NatWest have been engaging with us as well. So, and that being said, again, there's like 4 or 5 new fintechs on Baltic Ventures cohort this year, and that's so good to see. Some really, really innovative fintech propositions that are homegrown in Liverpool, bursting onto the scene. And I think it's our priority as an organisation with the support of our partners like DTM Legal, to support these companies and get them beyond that startup stage and get them to scale and get them really sort of adding to the local economy and adding value to the North as a whole.
Yeah, I think that's. I'll come on to this next one, but I think that's a challenge of the the city region is bringing those businesses on, taking them from startup scale up and really growing them. I feel for me that is a big challenge for the city. But that's someone based here from an outside perspective, what do you see are challenges and opportunities for fintechs in the LCR?
Yeah, and sorry, just quickly, just to add something on to the previous question as well. And I think we will come on to this, but the creation of the growth group has been a really positive development for the Liverpool City region fintech ecosystem. And that might well have driven even more engagement in things like our conferences. So yeah, I just wanted to give a shout out to the growth group. I know we'll touch on that later on, and DTM have been a key part of that, but that's been really important. In terms of challenges, I think the challenges for fintechs in the Liverpool City region are, similar to challenges faced by a lot of fintechs right across the North. Funding is a really big one at the moment. We've heard anecdotally that it's been really difficult to kind of get funding. Basically, that funding's kind of been harder to come by. Hopefully, with the kind of uncertainty and instability going on the other side of the pond, people look at the UK as a bit more of a safe bet for international expansion and indeed investments as well. So, I'm hoping that things might pick up on that front over the next year. But yeah, I'd say funding is definitely a challenge. I mean, you can really boil down, a lot of the fintech's challenges to sort of access to funding, access to market, access to partners. So 80% of fintech is B2B. So, procurement, working with banks and building societies, making that process as easy as we possibly can is a real kind of sticking point for them. The balance between innovation and regulation is always a key one for fintechs, with it being such a highly regulated space, with people's money being so important. It's right that this sector is regulated well, but getting that right, getting friction right is really important as well. Access to data as well. AI is so prevalent at the moment. Access to real and synthetic data sets is something that a lot of fintechs struggle with as well. So there are some of the challenges that we see, and they're often universal challenges there, I think, for fintechs, acutely felt by fintechs in the region, certainly on the funding front. Opportunities, though, I think, there are opportunities there as well. And again, I think I'll touch on this later with some advice to fintechs, but, having a niche, doing something really well, maintaining a competitive edge, doing something that nobody else does, I think, that would be a real opportunity. And certainly some of the fintechs that are speaking at the Liverpool conference definitely examples of that.
Yeah, no, I know from last year's conference, there were some businesses speaking there that really had some standout ideas and opportunities, and it will be great to see if we hear any more from them and how they grow and where they go. In terms of the success stories coming out of Liverpool, what do you feel they are, or who would you use an example as to showcase what the city region offers in this area?
Most certainly. So there's some well-established fintechs that have kind of recently chosen Liverpool as their base. So Zempla, which was until recently branded as Cash Plus Bank, Swoop as well, sort of funding platform Swoop. They've based themselves in Liverpool, which is awesome. I've already mentioned that Liverpool City region's home to some really big banking brands and financial services brands. So having a good density of financial services is so important, given that so much of fintech is B2B and that so much of the sector is fueled by the fact that fintechs can innovate so much quicker than some of these bigger legacy brands. So for a fintech looking at a city like Liverpool, I think having those brands there is certainly key, and that's why we're really keen to kind of engage those brands with our conferences and make the case for Liverpool as a great destination to expand into. I think as well the presence of Baltic Ventures, great incubator accelerator down at the Baltic Triangle, which is a super hip and happening place to base a business. organizations like iSeed is a great example, an insurtech based in Liverpool, kind of facing the maritime industry, like great organizations scaling, successfully under their own steam. Financial is another one, a female focused sort of wealth and financial management app as well. So kind of two examples right there in kind of bright and brilliant fintech innovation in the wealth tech and insurtech space.
No, there are some of the ones you mentioned. There are some great examples, and the conference provides such a good opportunity to showcase these businesses and what's going on in the city region, which is fantastic. Now I wanted to just move on to now look at a bit more between DTM relationship and collaboration with FinTech North. So we've worked on, I think, 3 events and potentially a 4th one this year already, and been annual partners for the last couple of years. And it's been, from our side anyway, it's been a great relationship and a great partnership, and something we were really keen to continue. And obviously we've renewed it into 2025. So what, from FinTech North's perspective, though, why are collaborations like the ones with us so important to the sector?
So I'm going to touch on what DTM can provide to our community, a little bit later on in this chat, because there's a really important role that DTM can provide in terms of supporting other companies within our community. In terms of the importance of our partnership, and just massive thanks to DTM Legal for their support over the years. You came on board as one of our first ever partners, which is awesome, and we've kind of grown with you from there, which has been great. We, as an organisation, I believe we play a really important role, within the sector, and potentially beyond. We are a northern-focused organisation that exists to promote the north as a destination in fintech. We're not national, because often national bodies often do end up becoming inevitably London-centric. We bring the north together in a way that I don't believe any other organizations really do. So I think we play a really important role there in terms of driving sort of pan-northern collaboration. We are grassroots focused, so we kind of make sure that we support businesses at early stages, make sure that they have a platform at our events. I think, again, sometimes organizations can kind of follow the money a little bit and end up focusing more on the later stages of the fintech life cycle. And we're talking more about, big global brands and, legacy FS brands. And sometimes the startup community can be forgotten a little bit. So all of that's really important. We're entirely self-funded as an organization. We're not a public sector organization. We need to find sort of revenue opportunities to kind of fund our activity, and the support that organizations like DTM Legal provide to FinTech North, is our lifeblood, really. So I think that we perform an important role, and you enable us to do that. So that's why I believe it's important for the sector.
Yeah, no, it is, like I said, it's a collaboration that we're proud of, and we are like to get the most out of it as much as we can. And I know we keep you busy with various events that we have you doing and bringing it all together. But so we'll talk about how that helps FinTech North, and important for the sector in terms of partnerships with professional services like DTM. I know there's other professionals that you partner with, accountants and the like. How does that help the fintechs themselves, do you think, navigate their challenges?
So I think it's really important because, observationally, I think if I think of a sort of stereotypical fintech entrepreneur, they're probably very passionate, very knowledgeable individuals. They're probably very experienced in their own field. But inevitably, they've spent a long time working in one area of often financial services or tech. They might not know everything about business, and gaps do appear in their knowledge, especially as if they've just started a fintech. They might not know anything about compliance. They might be really knowledgeable around payments, for example, but there's lots of knowledge gaps that kind of crop up. As you're sort of building a tech team, there's all sorts of HR issues that you might need to think about, and have culture in mind as you sort of scale your company. So I think basically the journey for fintechs is one of accelerated growth and indeed transformation. And there are knowledge gaps that open up along that journey. And it's also a really highly regulated space as well. Fintech, I think I mentioned that earlier, not many things are more important than people's money. So it's right that the sector is heavily regulated, which is obviously where, we need legal experts to come in and update us, what regulations coming in, what changes are happening, like what's coming down the track, what do I need to be aware of. So yeah, I think input from DTM Legal is really, really important to support the growth of fintechs. And ultimately, you can save these businesses in costs either down the line or kind of on their bottom lines today. Be that from preventing them having a legal headache in the future, or it might be something to do with R&D and tax, for example. So there's lots that you can do for them straight away.
Yeah, I think obviously we will say as professional services, but one of our key messages is to businesses is engage with your professional services, engage with your lawyers, engage with your accountants, and do this early and do it as you're growing and getting involved in your business. And we see collaborations with FinTech North as helping with that and signposting people and giving people access to those services. One of the areas that we've been working on, certainly collaboration, and what I've just said there forms a big part of what that group's trying to do. And I know you mentioned it earlier, the LCR FinTech Growth Group. What do you see on the growth group? How valuable do you see that initiative, and how beneficial do you feel that is to the region?
I think it's a great initiative, and it's in many ways a really strong story about the Liverpool ecosystem. It's not something that's replicated right across the north or right across the UK. There are similar examples of similar initiatives. For example, there's a Manchester FinTech Committee, which functions in a similar way, but I know that there's not something similar in Leeds. There was something set up in the northeast a while ago, but I'm not sure if that's still continued. So I think the growth group's a really vibrant example of where this can go, and the positive impact that something like that can have, basically. So yeah, I think that it helps create that community. That what I've noticed since the growth group has started is really strong attendances at some of these events, and FinTech North, we are an events company. We're always really keen to come to Liverpool and run things, but we're probably not going to get to Liverpool many more times than maybe 2, 3, 4 times a year, probably, because we're a small team covering the entire north, at least in terms of where we're at now. So having another kind of shoulder to the wheel, somebody else to kind of help bring a community together from our side is only beneficial, really. And I think, yeah, as a result, we've seen good engagement at some of our events, and we've been able to support the growth group with some of their events. I think it's just helped foster a bit more of a fintech specific community in the Liverpool City region.
Yeah, no, I agree with that, and I think that was one of the key things that came out of the report, the White Cap report from a couple of years ago, was that collaboration across the city, and actually the city being seen as a fintech hub, as having something here, and I think having that has really helped.
Yeah, and it being seen as a collaborative place, sometimes with these things, people sort of stop and start to ask themselves, well, what am I getting out of this? But actually, that's not the question you should be asking. It's, ask not what my city's doing for me, ask what I can do for my city. To paraphrase a well-known quote. I think it's a case of the Liverpool City region being seen as a collaborative place. And actually, I could go to anybody in the growth group and I could get a point in the right direction. I could get a word of advice. I could get a shoulder to cry on, all of those things that are really important for entrepreneurs.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good. We might have to steal that as a selling point for the city, Joe. That revised quote. But it's a good point, and that's part.
I'm sure JFK would approve.
Yeah. So looking ahead a bit, we've got the conference next week. What next do you see for FinTech North in Liverpool?
Lovely question. So yeah, there's a few things coming up which I just thought I'd mention as well. So wealth tech's obviously a major theme for our conference on the 18th of March. It's a strong subsector within the Liverpool City region. We're actually following up the conference with a dedicated wealth tech event happening on the 2nd of April. I must offer my commiserations that this is happening in Manchester, but we aren't positioning it as a Manchester thing. We're positioning it as a Northwest FinTech Forum, and with our conference being so close to it, it didn't really make sense to follow up with another Liverpool event so soon. So, wanted to mention the 2nd of April Northwest Wealth Tech Forum. In terms of other events that we've got in the pipeline, we'll be working with DTM, obviously, on an event later on in the year as well. So we hosted a couple of events towards the end of the year recently with success. We hosted our sort of fintech and gamification event back in 2022. We hosted a follow-up event last year around fintech as a force for good and purpose-driven fintech at the end of the year. So we'll certainly be working on something with DTM Legal, and then we have been sort of scoping out potentially an event that's not necessarily based in Liverpool, but is based across the wider city region. So that one's kind of in the works. But big thing for FinTech North is to not be sort of tied down to a particular city or location. We're all around, promoting the North as a whole. So watch this space, but we'd love to make something happen on the Wirral, for example. So yeah, keep us keep your eyes peeled.
It's an exciting time, I think, in that you guys are now looking at Liverpool or the city region as a whole, and shows the growth of the ecosystem, more activity, more engagement, like you touched on happening. And even though the event on the 2nd of April, even though it's in Manchester, the cities are only 45 minutes apart. The closer links that we can bring between the two, that what's going on in fintech in Manchester can benefit fintech in Liverpool, and likewise.
100%, and that's kind of the message that we always kind of hammer home, really, that actually like something happening in the North is beneficial to to all the cities of the North, really. Like when Starling going to Manchester or Zempler going to Liverpool, like that's a victory for regional fintech in the regions, and it's to be celebrated, and it's to ultimately it's demonstrating to organizations that they can have a successful business based outside of London, and similarly to individuals that you can have a great career in fintech in the regions. So yeah, definitely agree with what you've said there.
Agree on all that, Joe, definitely. So if you could give one piece of advice to an emerging fintech startup in the region, what would it be?
Really, really good question. So in one sound bite, and I'm going to steal this, I can't take credit for this, but it would be to be a painkiller, not a vitamin. Solve a problem. Don't just try and make something better or easier. Pick a problem that a bank has, or a building society, or another financial services institution, or indeed, pick a demographic or a community that's been underserved, and go and solve that problem and do it really well. So that's the first thing. I think another thing I'd just say, and I would say this as FinTech North, representative, but engage in your community. Organizations like FinTech North, organizations like the Growth Group, there's plenty of other awesome organizations right across the North that can help you be part of a community, be visible, network, like support, your colleagues and your peers, like get your team along to things. I think, there's so much value and insight out there that you've got to really go and find it and be in the room. So yeah, that's another thing I'd say. And just to give you a concrete example of some of the benefits of doing that, there was a fintech that pitched at our Manchester conference at the end of the year last year, and they raised £100,000 on the back of speaking in our fintech showcase at the Manchester conference. So really, really significant fundraise for the organisation. And I'm happy to share details on that. But they posted a really good blog from our website recently, and sort of talking about maximising the opportunity. And I think that all of those things are really important.
Some excellent tips in there, Joe. To anyone listening, any fintechs listening, the take on board what Joe's just said. And it's always good that you can have that example as well. It's always good to hear you say these things and then you have an example and you're seeing it in action is fantastic. So to move on to just one final thought, Joe, before we wrap up. In looking to the future, is where do you see Liverpool's fintech sector, say in 5 years' time, and how can the likes of DTM, the likes of FinTech North, continue to support its growth?
Great question to finish on. So in terms of where the sector's at today, we've got over 40 fintechs based in the city region. The sector's generating around 200 million GVA for the economy. I think, in 5 years' time, if we had, over 100 fintechs based in the city region. If the sector was generating, $500 million, I think that would be an awesome result. So that's the kind of the sort of numbers of companies and the growth that I would sort of expect to see in that time, given what we've seen right across the north. And that could even be conservative, to be honest, as an estimate. So, make no mistake, like fintech in Liverpool is growing. And I think we can all be, there to support it and be along for the journey. A few other things to mention as well. So those numbers that I mentioned there have come from the 2023 Whitecap Liverpool City Region report. Whitecap are working on another report at the moment, which is actually going to be a kind of pan-northern report, which will be looking at the north as one ecosystem, which is really exciting from our side, because obviously that's how we see the north. In terms of it being a region to support, but that will kind of refresh the numbers that I've just mentioned. So by the end of the year, we might know that those numbers are actually up a bit higher than we thought they were, and where they were in 2023. So Whitecap working on that report. I'm sure organisations like DTM Legal will be supporting that report. We certainly will be at FinTech North, and I think it's just a case of engaging with us at FinTech North, engaging with the growth group, like supporting your community, supporting those grassroots organisations like Baltic Ventures and FinTech North, who kind of do everything that we can do to make sure that these fintechs kind of scale successfully. So yeah, I think that's my thinking.
Oh, that's brilliant, Joe, and that's some great words to finish off. And nice to finish off looking ahead at, as I think we've said, what things are not only an exciting time for the Liverpool City region, but the north as a whole. That pan north idea I like, and there's strength right across the north, and the more we can build and promote that, the better it is for us all.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the north isn't one place. We're not pretending it's one place. We're accepting that there's actually a really diverse set of places right across the north with their own specialisms. But a lot of the challenges faced by businesses across the north are universal and are shared. So, yeah, couldn't be more excited about where we're going at the minute.
Definitely. Well, thanks very much for this today, Joe. It's been great to catch up, great to chat more about FinTech North, Liverpool City region, DTM, and the wider ecosystem. Looking forward to the conference next week and seeing what the rest of 2025 holds.
Likewise, Richard, and thank you to you and all the team at DTM Legal for your awesome support as a partner across the year. Couldn't do it without you.
Cheers. Thanks, Joe.